This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
We are.
Okay, welcome to this workshop, and we have almost 100 people here. And so we realize the importance of Codependents Anonymous and our recovery. My name is Jay. I live in Pennsylvania, and I've been in recovery since 2013. And the issues are issues that we all face. And today what we're looking for is eventually to get that word called gratitude. But there's a lot of steps before we get to gratitude, and maybe we'll have a chance to share about that at the end. We know that our higher power can restore us to sanity more than what we could imagine. So this is a spiritual program. So let's talk part of the recovery program, in my view, and from my experience in CoDA. It's not a psychological program. I was mentioned in the first thing. This is not therapy. This is not psychological counseling. It's called insight. So we want to develop insight into our own thoughts, our own feelings, and our own behavior. How do we react in situations? So get out some paper, take notes, because there's going to be a lot of information. I want you to, I'm going to send this PowerPoint out at the end so you'll have a copy of it. But in the process, know that this workshop is going to be part of your journaling. This is going to be part of your recovery by writing and journaling. So we know that people are compliant. We know that people are controlling. And what we're going to talk about is the use of boundaries to set it up, to figure what is the balance between should I be a compliant or should I control the situation. So in the 80s, there was a song that said, do I stay or do I go? Anybody remember that? Do I stay or do I go? And that's the dilemma that we face. So this is a meeting to me. So I always start a meeting with take a minute or two and check in with how you're feeling right now. And then we'll have the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let's see, Jim, are you with us? You want to read step one?
Yes, hold on. Ready. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over others, that our lives had become unmanageable.
Okay, and would someone read tradition 3, please? Anyone?
Yes, this is Shelley. I'm codependent. Tradition 3 is the only requirement for membership in CoDA is a desire for healthy and loving relationships.
Okay, so how do we get there? How do we get there? It's tradition 3, so there's a lot of information that we need to absorb before we get there. Melody Beatty in her 80s book, it's not easy to find happiness in ourselves. And I might add to that, we find it through our higher power. And she says it's not possible to find it elsewhere. So elsewhere can be helpful, but it can also be problematic. These are the publications that I used to develop this workshop. Am I Codependent, which is a pamphlet on the patterns. From the meeting handbook, we have recovery patterns from Codependents Anonymous. There's a pamphlet establishing boundaries in recovery, and then a pamphlet called Dealing with Disagreements. So this is your first assignment. Your first, when I say assignment, I mean this is part of your insight into the issues of compliance and control. Don't take it personally. Don't disclose it to anyone that you don't trust. This is for you. So first of all, in close personal relationships, this goes on a 5-point scale. Never, very little, sometimes, most of the time, and all the time. So, am I compliant? Never. Am I compliant? All the time. This is in your close relationships, intimate relationships, family. Second, am I controlling? Never. All the time in your close relationships. So you're going to rate yourself. You're going to develop insight into your own thinking, your own behavior, and your own compliant or controlling behavior. Let's move to work. I'm compliant. Never. all the time. I'm controlling, never all the time. Well, if you're a comptroller or you're a manager, so you see, this issue of compliance and control depends on the situation. There's very few people who are compliant all the time, and there's very few people who are controlling all the time. So if you look at the top here, the role that you play is very important. Are you a parent? Well, if you're a parent, I have a grandson who's 1. If you're compliant, you just let that kid run and go wild, and he started walking, what's going to happen? So you have to exercise control in that situation and monitor and be responsible. What about a child age 14? What about a teenager? Are you controlling or are you compliant? Hello? Okay, manager. What if you're a subordinate? And what is your level, your general level of self-esteem? And what is your level of confidence? Okay, so these are issues. This chart here, you can do this later. And again, I'll send you the PowerPoint. You want to take time with this. And this, by the way, you can do every day. This is a way for you to track your codependent behavior. So this is a codependent behavior tracker regarding compliance and control. So from this workshop, and we'll get through what we get through, but I also want to, give some time for questions and comments. So from this workshop, we said, what do I hope to get from my relationships? So look at the relationships, particularly your personal, intimate relationships. What am I getting? What do I hope to get from this relationship? Secondly, how can we as codependents find a balance between being compliant and exercising control? If you have your mic open,
can we ask people to mute themselves because there's a lot of background noise?
Mute unless you're talking, okay? Hello?
Yes, can we ask people to mute because there's a lot of background noise? Thank you.
Can you mute if you're not talking? Jim, can you look and figure out if you can just mute people for now? Okay, so number third there, not number 5, number 3 is how can setting boundaries help me find a healthy balance between compliance and control? Did you find it, Jim? Just mute everybody. Do you see participants? Okay, I think we got it. Okay, thank you. Number 6. So we're looking for, the goal of this is to find, hello? Mute, thank you. The goal of this is to find a balance between being compliant and being controlling. And sometimes we feel like we do both. So we want to figure this out. Number 6 here is, do I tend to be compliant generally, or am I controlling? And then the last one is, do my compulsive patterns give me a temporary sense of control? Cleaning, hand washing, and in the time of COVID, of course, shopping, addictions, work. So in other words, do my compulsions, do my compulsive behaviors allow me to have, I'm frustrated, I'm just going to go shopping, or I'm frustrated, I'm just going to get on the internet and do crazy things. All right. So the tools for this, and again, this is more of an insight. This is a workshop. List the 10 things that you most expect of yourself, particularly in relationships. In the relationship that you have now, what do you expect of yourself? In your work, what do you expect of yourself? The next thing, the 10 most expected of you by others, especially in difficult, close relationships, past and present, looking back at your father, looking back at your mother, looking back at controlling perpetrators in your life. What do they expect of you? What is expected of you by others? So you see, the contrast is going to be what you expect of yourself and what's expected of you by others. Next point. This is called expectations. So I have expectations that come from myself and expectations that come from others. If I meet expectations, you know what? I'm satisfied. If not, we go into codependent rage. Well, let me tell you, a healthier version is disappointment. You know what? I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in this relationship. I'm disappointed in my life. Okay? So expectations arise from within ourselves. This is called inner motivation and drive. So what about ourself? Are we always in self-control, or are we out of control? So look at yourself. Again, do a 5-point scale, always to never. No, I'm never out of control, or yes, I'm always out of control. Out of control versus self-control. Now, we can temporarily go into self-control by these addictions, by cleaning, by shopping, by helping somebody else, by doing volunteer work. And what we're doing is we're sidestepping. So go in and look at all the ego defense mechanisms. What they do is they help us feel better for a short while. Look at the patterns and characteristics: denial, repression, projection, minimizing. And here is a control pattern. I label others with my negative traits. See, I'm going to take the focus off of me, and I'm going to look at him or her and say, well, they. So I'm going to take the attention off of me and label others with my negative traits. In recovery, which is the blueprint, I acknowledge that I may own the negative traits I often perceive in others. Okay, so expectations arise from others. It's called external motivation. And the question is, do we feel controlled? Do we feel that rage and that anger of being controlled? Or can we move the bar up and say, you know what, I'm going to do something to take control of my life? And it's not going to be an addiction. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to use. I'm going to try to be assertive and do something to take control of my life. So that's the premise. So here's some questions. Let's look at what you expect of yourself. Here's a basic question. Answer it. Is self-care selfish? Do you think, or did you learn, maybe growing up, that taking care of yourself is selfish? I did. Grew up in a religious family. Taking care of yourself is selfish. You can't be proud. You got to take care of everybody else's first. Okay? So is it selfish to take care of yourself? Secondly, are you able to achieve what you expect of yourself? Again, we're going back to that list you made. Thirdly, when you cannot meet your own expectations, I can't do this. This is too much. I'm failing. I'm a failure. Do you have negative emotions, guilt, shame, anxiety, or depression? These negative emotions, guess what? Are our character defects. This is our character. These negative emotions are, for the most part, really define our character defects, the aspects of our character that we want to be aware of. Look at your feelings. Look at how you're creating your emotions and what they are. These character defects promote codependent behavior and addictive patterns. Last point. If I'm not happy with myself, maybe I could focus on pleasing my mate or my boss or my children and just forget about me. Or I could escape my pain with addictions. Let's look at what other people put on us. What are their expectations, particularly in difficult, abusive relationships? Is self-care selfish? Am I able to meet the expectations of others, especially in difficult, close relationships? When you cannot meet the expectation of others in difficult, close relationships, do you have negative emotions, such as guilt, shame? I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Anxiety and depression. So these negative emotions can be part of your character defects, part of your character that promote codependent behavior and addictive patterns. So if I'm not happy in this relationship, maybe I could just focus on pleasing him or her. Just forget about what I need. Escape my pain. Okay, so that's the framework, and that's what you want to be thinking about for the entire workshop. Now let's go into a little bit more detail about boundaries. And again, one of the pamphlets I said is the pamphlet on setting boundaries. That's free downloadable from CoDA website. So let's begin this process. How do I sort out whether I'm compliant and controlling? Well, the first thing is to set a boundary. Now, is a boundary a wall? Are you just going to put up walls around yourself and isolate? You know the avoidance patterns in terms of patterns and characteristics. You're familiar with those? So am I going to do that? Or am I going to use the screen door, which is there's going to be a barrier, there's going to be a boundary, but I'm open to what's happening. I want to stop, look, and listen, secondly. So I want to reflect, but I don't want to react. So I want to stop reacting by being mindful and just listen to what's going on. If somebody's screaming at you, say, you know what, I hate you. I worked with oppositional defiant teenagers. And they'll look at you and say, wait, I hate you. I hate you. I mean, literally, with even more meaning than what I can say there. So what do? Listen. Stop, look, and listen. Listen. Okay. So the green pattern from dealing with disagreements, listen to objections as long as they are stated in a respectful manner. What if it's not respectful? What if it's just downright harsh? Okay. So then there's no negotiation. That's not really negotiation. So that then becomes a trigger. So if there's somebody who is constantly beating you and harming you and being abusive in many ways, the goal and the challenge in CoDA is to be aware of how you're reacting to those situations. First of all, realize that any uncertainty is stress. Unpredictability. Don't know when he's going to go off. Don't know when he's going to go drinking and get, We just, in our earlier meeting today, one of our meeting group members his email was hacked. How do we respond when these things happen that are out of our control? Well, first thing, and what we want to say today is to stop. Remember, stop, look, and listen, reflect rather than react. Be mindful and listen. Close yourself down and listen. When you wake back up, think about how you feel. How did that make you feel? Or how do you feel now? I feel ashamed. I feel embarrassed, guilty, angry. I hate these people, If you watch the news a lot, you'll see a lot of hate. And it's very biased, one directional. So you can say, okay, I'm going to join that group because they hate that person and I want to hate. Shame, guilt, anxious, depressed. Feeling disappointment now is a healthy and realistic way when your expectations are not met. So disappointment, we think, is a healthy emotion, and that's from my experience as well. If I just say, you know what, I'm going to either rage or say, you know what, I'm disappointed. I'm just really disappointed. So we want to avoid impulsive action or reaction, especially when we're feeling these strong negative emotions. Anger, depression, anxiety, shame, guilt, self-loathing, self-hatred, hatred of others. Stop, look, and listen. Reflect. Pray, meditate. People that I mentor say they pray Serenity Prayer 4 or 5 times a day. However you pray. Mindfulness meditation is very helpful. So as codependents, we react impulsively to the anger, depression, anxiety, guilt, and shame that others have. And we react with our own anger, depression, anxiety, shame, and guilt, especially when it's directed towards us. So we live in a world, and just put in here, we live in a world where everybody's business is my business. And so there's no boundaries. in our society. This goes way back to the reality show called My Big Brother, I think, where they videotape people living together in a house. And I don't know how many years ago that was, but to me that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we have no boundaries, that we're that invasive, that we enjoy watching other people in their bedrooms. Okay. So, this is part of the society that we live in. So welcome to that. And we have to learn to deal with this. So this becomes a vicious cycle of negative thinking and feeling overwhelmed. So you begin by setting the boundary. How you do that? Admit your feelings to yourself or another trusted person. This is hard work. There's a Plutchik's wheel of emotion. I'm going to write it here, and you can look at it later. Plutchik. Plutchik's wheel of emotion. Just go on the Google and search that. And it lists you a variety of complex feelings. So if you say, well, I don't know what I feel, look at that wheel of emotion and try to say, well, that's what I feel. Now I have a word for it. Okay? So allow yourself to be vulnerable, disclose what you think and feel. So you say, to anybody? No. No. Vulnerability, if you know Brown's research on Brown, you don't share anything with anybody you don't trust. So we learn to detach. If we're not trusting and we're feeling violated from the get-go, you got to detach. So allow yourself to be vulnerable and disclose what you think and feel with someone that you trust.
Right.
And then the last pattern is determine the need for creating a boundary. Excuse me. There we go. Determine the need for creating a boundary or changing an existing boundary. So we do this by listening to our feelings. For example, if we're angry, used, guilty, we probably need to set a boundary. More reflection, less reaction. Meg, you had your mic open. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. So here's more on boundaries. Boundaries is the key. Boundaries is the key. There is a pamphlet that is free downloadable. Okay. And it's called Boundaries. Can you see that?
Yep.
It's free downloadable from CoDA. Here they are. Boundaries are limits. Again, we said a boundary separates a person, place, or thing. Screen door rather than a wall. Don't build walls around yourself. Boundaries are verbal or physical divisions. And this is what's important. So how do I set a boundary? That's who they are, but this is who am I? Who I am. Who am I? So you're bombarded with who you should be, right? You get all these messages. I should join this. I should do this. I should do this. This is how I should feel. This is how I should think. Well, who am I? Second is, what is my responsibility? Third is, what am I feeling? And next is, what do I need? So we're going to separate our issues from other people, particularly in close relationships. I know she needs this. I know he needs this. I know they need this. I know everybody needs this. My children need this. I need it, right? How many feel overwhelmed? Responding to what everybody else needs from you, their expectations. So setting boundaries improves our sense of who we are rather than depending on someone else. Promise 10. Would someone read it, please?
I am Lisa.
I no longer need to rely solely on others to provide my sense of worth. My name's Johnny. I'm codependent.
Oh, Johnny.
Thank you.
Can you read Promise 10? Someone?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm
Thank
Jeremy,
you.
codependent.
Hi, Jeremy.
I no longer need to rely solely on others to provide my sense of worth.
Okay. So we are important. You are important. You are valued. You do not have to rely on others and the expectations of others to provide your sense of worth. All right, so we're going to ask people to read now. I'd like one person to read the black and the blueprint for recovery is in blue. So these are the blue is the patterns of recovery. And this is from from the meeting handbook. So if somebody would volunteer to read the black and another person read the blue.
I can volunteer to read the black. My name is Anne Marie, and I'm in recovery today.
Anne Marie, read the black. Oh, you read the blue?
I'll read the black.
The blue.
Okay, Anne Marie, black.
I can read the blue.
I'm Michelle, codependent. I'll read the blue.
No, the first person who said that, was it Julie?
Yvette.
Oh, Yvette. Okay, Yvette, you read the blue, please.
I am extremely loyal, remaining in harmful situations too long.
The blue.
I am committed to my safety and leave situations that feel unsafe or are inconsistent with my goals.
I compromise my own values and integrity to avoid rejection or anger.
I am rooted in my own values, even if others don't agree or become angry.
I put aside my own interests in order to do what others want.
I consider my interests and feelings when asked to participate in another's plans.
So the boundaries, sometimes we may need to state our boundary. Years ago, Dare had a saying, just say no. Sometimes you have to just say yes. But you're going to say it out loud to the person that you're established with. No, this is not acceptable. And so we can even say that to ourselves. No, this is not acceptable behavior, Jay. Okay, go on.
I am hypervigilant regarding the feelings of others and take on those feelings.
I can separate my feelings from the feelings of others. I allow myself to experience my feelings and others to be responsible for their feelings.
Okay. Determine the need for creating a boundary and possibly changing your existing boundary. So maybe you think you have a boundary set up, but it's not working. So you need to add clarity. Sometimes we need to get a mediator. Sometimes you need to just talk to another friend about what you think the boundary is. But first of all, we have to listen to what we're feeling. What am I feeling? So if I'm feeling angry, used, guilty, I probably need to relook at my boundary. And how do I do that? Stop, listen, be mindful, and listen. Okay, let's go on. Different set of two people, please.
Hi, I'm Julie. I can read the black.
Julie, black.
I am
Michelle. I can read.
Dinah.
Dinah,
blue.
I can read the blue.
Thank you.
I'm afraid to express my own beliefs, opinions, and feelings when they differ from those of others.
I respect my own opinions and feelings and express them appropriately.
I accept sexual attention when I want love.
My sexuality is grounded in genuine intimacy and connection. When I need to feel loved, I express my heart's desires. I do not settle for sex without love.
I make decisions without regard to the consequences.
I ask my higher power for guidance and consider possible consequences before I make decisions.
I give up my truth to gain the approval of others or to avoid change.
I stand in my truth and maintain my integrity, whether others approve or not, even if it means making difficult changes in my life.
Okay, so the boundary statement is despite objections. We want to restate our boundary and stick to it. If we decide to reconsider our boundary in the face of conflict, it's helpful to do so on our own time away from outside influence. So do you have to share everything that you think and feel with someone? That's a question, a rhetorical question. You know, there's this saying that basically it's me. And, you know, do I have to please other people? Do I have to make clear what I'm thinking? Do I have to clearly state what I'm thinking and feeling? Okay, so in private, you do this, of course. You do this in journaling so that you know. So you're reflective. You're not reacting. You're not getting into an argument where he says this and you say that, and she says this and you say that. So reflect, stop, look, and listen. Give yourself time to think about it. Now, here's an interesting twist on this. Can compliance be controlling? From my experience, yes. So if I do not comply with my own values or expectations, does this create confusion? You know what? I know that's not right. Why did I do that? I know this is not the right thing to do. Okay? Maybe you did it to keep him or her happy or off your back. Maybe you did it to get a higher evaluation. Of course, that's illegal for a boss to say, quid pro quo. That's what quid pro quo is. You do this and I'll do this. No. Okay? When I do not comply and when I'm not compliant with others, can this be seen as controlling? Oh, I grew up in a passive-aggressive family. Learned not to fight. Pacifist, very passive. So people were passive-aggressive, sulking, delaying, sidestepping. Think about it. We'll talk about that later. Look at the avoidance patterns. Okay? So can this non-compliance be controlling? Absolutely. So the two kind of go hand in hand, and here's the goal. We want to try to understand what happens in our relationships, but you know what we need to do first is to start what's happening within us. All right, let's go to control patterns. One day I have nothing to do. I'm going to write a book called, like BYOB. This is going to be MYOB, Mind Your Own Business. Or learning to care in healthy ways. So here's the question. What is my business and what isn't? What is my problem and what is not? Do I control people out of my own fear and frustration? So then who has the problem? Now we have two people having a problem. Now I have a problem. I'm going to spread it because of my own fear and frustration. So do I spread my fear and frustrations? We know that attitudes, positive and negative, are contagious. So am I fear spreader? Am I humiliation, guilt, shame, frustration spreader? It's controlling. So controlling behavior, if a parent, there's something here I want to insert. It's called active. This isn't necessarily a place, but write it down. It's called activeparenting.com. Okay, activeparenting.com is a parenting program that teaches parents how to be actively involved, but not overly dictatorial, authoritarian, and not to be neglectful. So active parent means you're involved, but you're not you're not overly controlling. So if you are a controlling person, or maybe you know somebody who is, you're going to oppose that. You're going to be defiant. So how many know, if you watch the media particularly, we are loaded with defiance in this country and opposition. So somebody is seen as controlling and somebody is opposing and defiant. So controlling behavior results in opposition or defiance. So when you control somebody, if you're getting the message, you know what, I hate you, I don't like you, get away, stop, get out of my space, I don't ever want to see you again, don't come to another meeting. So what happens with COVID? Well, we have mandates now. So we have mandates for what we are told to do. These are controls. These are governmental controls, state, federal, mask, social distancing. So can you see how that results in opposition and defiance just by the nature of it? Okay, am I a fixer, unhealthy helper, solution finder? Guess what? Controlling sometimes is looking for somebody to rescue. Now, I'm not picking on people who are sponsors or people who help everybody that's helpful is good. But sometimes controlling can be looking for a victim to rescue. Okay, let's read the next one. This should be green. It's from the Welcome. Can somebody read that, please? We attempted.
I'm Dinah.
Dinah, thank you.
Well, we attempted to use others, our mates, our friends, and even our children as our sole source of identity, value, and well-being, as a way of trying to restore within us the emotional losses from our childhood. From the Welcome.
Thank you. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful. So The social support, friendship, or codependency. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my sister's keeper? What about helping others? And what's the difference between helping others and providing social support versus not? What's the impact of social distancing? Now, I'm going to try to do this, and if it doesn't happen, I guess it doesn't. I have a video I want to show. I guess I have to have it open up there. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes, I can see it.
But we can't hear anything.
Oh, you can't.
When you start sharing, you have to allow sound.
Oh.
It seems like there is some sound. It's just not very loud.
Oh, is that right?
Very faint.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on.
Headphones off just while you're playing the video.
Let me see if I can fix that. Can you hear it now?
No.
Jay, if they're just talking, just a suggestion, you can hit the CC button at the bottom and that will show closed captioning so we could read what they're saying. But if they're singing it, then we won't be able to hear that.
Okay, let me just stop this a second. Okay, and say that again, whoever said that.
It's Amanda. There's a CC little button at the bottom on your bottom right of the video, and that's just closed captioning. So whatever they're saying will just show up as words on the bottom.
Oh.
And there's some sound. It's very faint, but there is some sound.
There is some sound, yeah.
Is everybody else muted? Because if they're not,
everybody
then
mute yourself and see if that helps.
Can hear it now a little bit. Can I suggest, Jay, that maybe is there a summary that you want to tell us about the video that might help with your presentation? Next point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And just an FYI, I would go search for that video and screen share for you, but I can't leave without stopping the recording. I can't leave without stopping the recording.
No problem. Okay. Anyway, actually, if you want to find this for yourself, www.youtube.com, and then I got to see if I can stop that now that I have it going.
I'll add it into the chat and people can click on it. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
If you stay on the screen for a minute more.
Yeah. This is a song by Bill Withers, Lean on Me. So what it's about? Well, particularly this is produced by Canada, a group of artists from Canada, about COVID and about the support from nurses, from like Florence, from nurses all over the world, medical people. So here's the question: is our leaning healthy? So if we're leaning, are we leaning in healthy ways? So do we have a healthy social support or friendship? Or are we into a compliance and controlling pattern? You know, a lot of times from my experience, when I meet a codependent, it's like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? I don't have any money. Can you? Red flags. Okay, that's red flags. So obviously, Bill Withers had it right. We need to help each other. So another sensitive issue, sponsors, whether it's CoDA or other programs. Can a sponsor be controlling and a sponsee compliant in codependent ways? I mean, I've known sponsors who say, do this or I won't be your sponsor. Okay. Narcissistic, we've heard about that. Overly dominating and controlling, dependent personality, overly compliant, overly needy, lacking self-reliance, and resilience. So what is your personality?
Jay, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So personally, I swing between the dependent and the narcissist. I dependent, then I get angry and I go full out to the other end of the...
Yeah. And that's what happens to a lot of us as codependents. You know what? We feel like we're helpful and we're good. We're listeners, right? We're tolerant. And then all of a sudden that button gets pushed. And you're saying, what? You're doing what? A narcissistic personality, let me just say, I'm sorry, who was that? Shelley, yeah. Shelley, thank you. Here's the issue. Personality, for it to be a narcissistic or dependent personality, it's a stable pattern of behavior over time. Stable pattern of behavior.
Phew, thank you. That's helpful.
So it's a consistent pattern. A narcissist can be very successful financially, by the way. But listen, it's my ship. Either do it my way or get off the ship, my way or the highway. And a dependent person is, if I hear somebody who consistently says, I'm sorry, if I would hear the person say, I'm sorry one more time, I'm sorry. It's like, okay, I get it. Do you understand what you're sorry about?
So you may be describing us Canadians, Jay, but just sorry to interject.
Sure. And who's speaking? Oh, okay. Did you have something else to say, Neil?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I couldn't.
And us south of the border are the narcissist ones.
Okay. So anyway, watch that video from the Canadian artist because that is wonderful. So yeah, I don't think CoDA knows any boundaries. We're an international fellowship. I would love to hear where you're from. I know we have people from all over the world in different languages. So the next point is that sometimes controlling involves looking for a victim to rescue or someone to use. What is the 13th step? Do we do that? Do you see any of that in your rooms? And of course, most people would say probably yes. All right, so now we're going to go into, Carol, do I have the 245? I can't hear you. Okay.
That's a yes.
Okay. So would somebody read control patterns black and then blue, please? Blueprint.
I'm Anna. I'll read black.
Thank you.
I'm Amanda. I'll read blue.
Amanda, go ahead.
I believe people are incapable of taking care of themselves.
I realize that with rare exceptions, other adults are capable of managing their own lives.
I attempt to convince others what to think, do, or feel.
I accept the thoughts, choices, and feelings of others, even though I may not be comfortable with them.
I freely offer advice and direction to others without being asked.
I give advice only when asked.
I become resentful when others decline my help or reject my advice.
I am content to see others take care of themselves.
Okay, so what's the boundary message here? Boundaries help separate our identity. Who am I? My responsibility, my feelings, and my needs. Totally separate. Separate. There should be no connection. between what I think, feel, and my responsibility from the identity, responsibility, feelings, and needs of others. Is that a challenge or what?
Super.
Because somebody said something? Okay.
Sorry, I said super challenge.
Yeah. that's the challenge of the day. That's the CoDA challenge of the day, is to be in a relationship. But this is where you need to stop, look, and listen. Okay, that's an old railroad crossing we had here in the U.S. The sign up says stop, look, and listen. There may be a train. Okay, so we want to stop and meditate. We don't have to react. And the person might say, well, say something. I said, well, no, I'm thinking. Okay. So what I think, my identity, who I am. And you say, well, when you get married or have a long-term relationship, you should be joined as one, right? See the hands coming together? Huh. Okay. So do you lose your identity in the relationship? Are you responsible? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Not that you have to leave the relationship. Again, the dilemma is, do I stay or do I go? So we're not asking everybody to divorce or separate themselves from these relationships. It's just to separate yourself emotionally. I think separation and divorce is totally misunderstood. And if it was understood, there'd probably be less divorce and less separation because people would realize they have a boundary. That this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking. I don't have to tell you what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking I'm going to spend quiet time. And I'm going to identify what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. Layla?
Yeah, I have a question. So
Sure.
I used to, I had a major problem where I was not aware of it, that I was constantly giving advice, helping, seeking people that needed to be rescued.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've solved that problem. But the dilemma I have is if for my family and friends, of course, this is exclusive to just them. If I have information that can help them and I see them that they've fallen, they've made a mistake, do I not tell them? Do I just let them figure it out and just sit there? Or do I say, I've had this before and this is what I learned? Or is that crossing a boundary?
Okay, so the controlling would be if you just sort of lay out your thoughts and they don't ask you for your thoughts. Okay, so Layla, if someone asks you for advice, if you're having a conversation, you say, I just found this website, like I shared with you, Lean on Me. That's a resource. And so you can share that, but you don't share it in the sense that you're just the big sister or that you're the know-it-all from CoDA. Does that make sense, Layla?
Yeah. You're not identifying with it. You're not saying that if they don't do this, then you're not attaching yourself to the advice that you're giving. You're doing it because it's best for them.
If they ask.
So it's important if they ask.
Absolutely.
And if they don't ask, you're crossing boundaries because You're trying to solve their solution when they might just need support.
Yes. Listen first.
Yes.
Listen first. Don't assume that you have the best advice without finding out who they are. I just listened to a seminar from John Maxwell. It was, how can I help somebody who I don't know what they're thinking or feeling? How can I be helpful to somebody I don't know what they're thinking? See? So if you're really going to be helpful, you want to understand where they're coming from. So if you do anything, say, well, can you tell me what you're thinking? Is there any way that I can be helpful? Okay.
So to ask questions and is better as a support to see where they are instead of assuming that I might know it and they don't.
Yeah, don't move into the advice giving role unless you're asked, and then be a resource.
Jay, could I just butt in and ask? Because Elizabeth has put the same idea in the chat as what I thought. She's put, could I see that you're struggling. Do you want my input or advice? Would that be crossing a boundary?
Well, that's a yes or no question, so they could say no.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
So the first thing, listen first. Okay, take time to listen and say, tell me what's going on. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? If this is a friend, of course, and you want to just listen to them and say, tell me what's going on. What's happening? What are you thinking? How's it been going? Okay, Jono?
Yeah, okay, I'm listening.
Can I comment really quick?
Sure.
Just something that's helped me in my journey has been to just take the feelings that I have in those moments with family and friends and return to program with it. And to where I would want to say something or help someone or think that I have the power to be the vessel that they need in that moment, that I take those feelings and thoughts to my higher power.
Oh, yes.
And
Oh,
then
yes.
be, genuine and trusting that I have a higher power that leads me, that they have a higher power, and that, it helps release me from making their business mine and falling into traps of codependency in that way.
And thank you, because here's one of the key words you want to write this down: over responsibility. So I know we want to help and I know we care, but we can be overly responsible. Okay. So it doesn't mean so again, healthy responsibility is one thing, but overly responsibility is you're in everybody else's business and you're trying to help them in unhealthy ways by violating their boundary. So ask them, listen to them first. Okay, I need 2 more people to read.
Jay, Martha M has her hand raised virtually.
Okay, hello.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add that whenever someone in my life is talking about something they're struggling with or a problem in their lives, I just ask, would you like me to just listen or would you like my feedback? And then based on their answer, I know how to act appropriately. Okay, good. Okay, that's a good start. So the first half of that is that you can listen. You don't have to ask them to listen. I mean, yeah, but that's great. That's perfect. Yeah. So you put in there that you're a willing listener. Okay. All right, 2 more people. Thank you. 2 more readers, please.
I can read.
Elizabeth M has put her name in the chat.
Okay, go ahead. Black and then blue.
I can read the black.
Go ahead.
Jeremy, codependent. Yep. I lavish gifts and favors on those I want to influence.
Okay, blue. Did you say somebody else said?
I'll read it.
I can read it. Elizabeth M.
Okay, Elizabeth. Sorry, Jillian. Thanks.
Elizabeth M. Are you still interested in reading? Okay, someone else then.
Jillian.
I carefully and honestly contemplate my motivations when preparing to give a gift.
I use sexual attention to gain approval and acceptance.
I embrace and celebrate my sexuality as evidence of my health and wholeness. I do not use it to gain the approval of others.
Okay, again, the boundary is determine the need for creating a boundary or change an existing boundary. Say no. We do this by listening to our feelings. Before you say no, listen to your feelings. So if I'm angry, if I feel used, guilty, these negative emotions, which we know are building into your character defects, are causing you to be codependent. That's why you're codependent, because you're listening to these negative feelings. So set up a boundary and understand what you're feeling. Okay, 2 more readers, please.
I can read.
Okay, Stephanie, black.
Read also.
Lisa, blue.
Okay. I have to feel needed in order to have a relationship with others.
I develop relationships with others based on equality, intimacy, and balance.
I demand that my needs be met by others.
I find and use resources that meet my needs without making demands on others. I ask for help when I need it without expectation.
I use charm and charisma to convince others of my capacity to be caring and compassionate.
I behave authentically with others, allowing my caring and compassionate qualities to emerge.
And Promise 10, somebody read that?
I can read that.
Okay.
Richard from Scotland.
Thank you.
Promise 10. I no longer need to rely solely on others to provide my sense of worth.
So you see the boundary. You see the separation. This is an emotional separation. This is not social distancing. This is an emotional distancing. It's an emotional separation where your self-worth is not based on what somebody expects of you. Okay. All right, let's go on. 2 more readers, please, and we're almost done.
Hi, this Lori. I'll read.
Lori, black.
Julia,
blue.
I use blame and shame to exploit others emotionally.
I ask directly for what I want and need and trust the outcome to my higher power. I do not try to manipulate outcomes with blame or shame.
Hold on. I refuse to cooperate, compromise, or negotiate.
I cooperate, compromise, and negotiate with others in a way that honors my integrity.
I adopt an attitude of indifference, helplessness, authority, or rage to manipulate outcomes.
I treat others with respect and consideration and trust my higher power to meet any needs and desires.
Okay, and somebody read Promise 7, please.
And I could read. Promise 7. I am capable of developing and maintaining healthy and loving relationships. The need to control and manipulate others will disappear as I learn to trust those who are trustworthy.
Okay. 2 more readers, please.
I can read.
Thank you.
I like to do the blue.
Amanda, black, and somebody blue. Jono.
Thank you.
I use language of recovery in an attempt to control the behavior of others.
I use my recovery for my own growth and not to manipulate or control others.
I pretend to agree with others to get what I want.
My communication with others is authentic and truthful.
Okay. So in relationships, you listen to objections as long as they are stated in a respectful manner. So the challenge, of course, is what to do when you're in a disrespectful relationship. You know, mutual respect is required. And yet, you know, in our meeting this morning, our CoDA meeting, somebody was talking about how their father used to always talk about people, negative comments about anybody that he met. You know, always a negative about people, and probably, when I say a negative, probably about themselves. They may not or may not be aware of. So respect is absolutely important. And CoDA, so yes, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. One of the other rooms needs to go a little longer, so you have till 2:55.
Okay, great. That's 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
15, yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you a 5-minute heads up. Is that right?
Sure, that's perfect. Thanks, Carol. So the issue of respect. Well, the society that I live here in the U.S., it seems like we don't know this concept anymore. We've lost it. So I don't know how you respect somebody you don't like. Can you respect somebody you don't like? Can you respect somebody that that has offended you? That's not what this is saying. This is saying that you communicate in a respectful way. If you don't want to communicate with them, don't have a relationship, there's no reason why you have to communicate from them. So basically what it's saying is, if you are trying to communicate and you are trying to set a boundary in a relationship, you know, understand what you're doing, that you're not trying to manipulate other people, that you use your recovery for your own growth, and you're not trying to manipulate or control others. So this is pretty significant. And of course, stop, look, and listen. Take time, reflect on it. And the more we reflect on it, see, we're programmable. If decisions that we make and thoughts that we have, we will live by. Okay, so we have to set our mind to, what is it that I believe? What is it that I want to think? You know, somebody in CoDA 6 months ago said the only way you get anything done is to I don't want to use the word, but to make other people angry. Okay? Those are other words for that. So the only way you get done is to make other people angry, and then they'll listen to you. That's called negative intention. So so don't agree with others to get what you want. Be authentic and listen. When you have a relationship that you're trying to work out, listen to what the other person is saying, assuming that it's in a respectful manner. If it isn't respectful, try to end the relationship, detach. All right, so let's talk about some conclusions, and then we give more time for sharing. The most important point to remember in terms of boundaries is in establishing boundaries is that we need to listen to and fully consider our own feelings first, not other people's. Now, I don't know if that registers with anybody. If that registers as like, is that possible? You mean what I think is more important than what my spouse thinks? You mean what I think is more important than what my mother thinks? Okay. Self-care is not selfish. A lot of people in CoDA don't have a voice. Never had an opportunity to have a voice. So finding a voice doesn't mean that you're going to be loud and brash and overbearing. You're going to find your inner voice. So we have our inner self and we have our outer self. My inner self is what's in here. My outer self is what I portray to other people. So you want to find your inner self. Journal, diary, find a friend. I tell you what, I don't know how many personal friends you have, but very few people have more than 3 or 4 very close personal friends. Okay, so when people spill their private secrets on the internet, it scares the heck out of me because, I mean, even in CoDA meetings, how much are you going to share? Or is there another way for you to share what's really going on with you? And be sincere, be authentic. Find your inner voice in an authentic way. Don't just memorize your script of what you want to say. Really take care of yourself and spend time thinking. So, I statements, particularly in meetings. I think. This is what I think. This is what I feel. This is what I do. This is how I react in certain situations. Now we get to group consensus. This is always like a claw for me. Group consensus always sounds like there's this social phenomenon that's much bigger than the individual. So you and we statements. I don't know if anybody wants to share about this. I'd be open to hearing your thoughts about group consensus. How does that differ from the I statements? I know the promises are I, and the rest of it is we. So any thoughts about that from your experience with CoDA? What's the difference between I and we and you? Anybody? Laurie?
Yes, hi. Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. I identify when I'm referring to myself that it's an individual thing, and when I use we, I feel more inclusive and in unity. I'm not alone, kind of thing for me.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, Jay, can I say something about it?
Jeremy.
Good. And I feel like the we is, from my perspective, is that I can't recover alone. So that's the we for me. And I would just say the I is, the promises come to my life. They're personal to me, and they come in my life at certain times. So thanks.
Okay. And one more person.
Go
ahead.
For me, sometimes the we statement can be a little dangerous because I might use it to deflect and not take ownership and responsibility in what I'm doing. So I generalize my responsibility to not make it seem as to push away my responsibility.
Yeah, thank you. Sandra?
Could I?
Yes, hi.
Okay.
I had my hand raised.
from chat.
I'd happily be brief so we can both share.
Okay.
Hi, this is Sandra. And I think for me, it's really important to only use we when there has been a group conscience and I know people's position. I want to share from my own perspective because that's all I know. And I need to surrender my will to the group. I've learned this by doing service. So I highly recommend service.
Right.
And I'll pass.
Okay, thank you. Kara, did you have a comment?
Somebody from chat has a question for you. You've said several times that negative feelings are signs of your character defects. Can you further explain that statement? And it may not be the timing right now. I just want to pass it on.
Okay, just real quickly. Yeah, our character, if you look at step 4, it's basically to say, these are our character, we want to understand our character. And so I like to look at it in terms of our character as much as a defect. I'm not real into the defectology. If we look at the other step as shortcomings, and apparently Bill W. Came to this agreement. I think we have enough defects. We know we're defective. So number 7, the 12th step 7, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. So in some ways, this negative emotional cycle that we get into is a shortcoming. So it's part of our character. Hopefully that answers your question.
Can I say something
Sure.
to that? I actually have something that's coming up for me with that question is that in a relationship that I'm in in a particular relationship that I have in my life right now that I'm trying to navigate out of the codependence within it, I'm really connecting to the patience that needs to happen while in conversation, because I'll notice that at moments in the conversation, there'll be an overwhelming sense of shame that'll come up.
Okay.
Because if there's like a question being asked for clarification and the other person kind of pretends like they don't know the response to, it's almost like that patience, I feel like, in response is a character defect.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Carol?
5 minutes.
Okay. So let's move on. Thanks for sharing. And please, feel free to think about this, and you have my email. I'd be happy to have further conversation, and hopefully we'll have another workshop down the road. So next point, before recovery, we may have allowed others to control and possibly even dominate us, or we may have tried to do the same to them. This next statement is probably the most important from the whole workshop for me. Healthy detachment is not disconnecting from others you care about. It's disconnecting from the agony of over-involvement. Okay? So if you know what a wire mesh is very, very closely knit wire, and it's called enmeshment. And so if you're involved in a family that is enmeshed, everybody knows everybody's business and everybody's flurry and worry, but nobody really knows what the problem is or what to do about it, that's enmeshment. Okay, too many connections. So slow down, stop, look, and reflect. So would somebody read Promise 7, please?
I can read Promise 7. This
Thank
is
you,
Yvette. Thank you so much for your service. Promise 7. I am capable of developing and maintaining healthy and loving relationships. The need to control and manipulate others will disappear as I learn to trust those who are trustworthy.
Okay. Love the promises. So the last slide of conclusions. Take a personal inventory, step 4, step 10. Step 11, connect with your higher power. Try to solve with a direct communication. Again, you're not yelling at each other. You're not arguing. There's a concept called fighting fair, which is communicating, possibly a mediator if you need to, counselor. Next, be aware of boundaries using coping skills. My version of coping skills is the 3 W's. What is the problem? Who has the problem? And what is my responsibility? So to clearly, so many times people are upset and everybody's upset and upset and upset. Okay, fine. Well, what actually is the problem? And who has the problem? Exactly. And what is my responsibility? What is it that I need to do to be responsible? How can I, responsibility is how I have the ability to respond. How am I going to respond? Listen, be open, be clear, concise, and honest. Stop, look, and listen. Just stop. If you don't know, just stop. Pray, meditate, sometimes alone. Okay, would somebody, let's see, I'll read this. Take responsibility for your actions and words and make amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And the last couple points here, again, to highlight in red, prepare for a difficult encounter. So if you're in a difficult relationship, family, spouse, friend, maybe your employer, take time to prepare for that so you don't go into it operating out of your codependent anger and codependent emotions, showing all the character defects or character shortcomings that you know, all in one setting, impulsively. So we go into it by reflecting and meditating. I love the concept of supplication. You don't hear it much anymore because it's a very biblical concept. It means allowing your body and mind to just let go. Just release it. The bottom line is the reason you're releasing it is that you don't need the stress. Stress is very hard on us physically, emotionally, especially chronic stress. So release it. Find a friend, accountability partner, therapist, or sponsor. You know, a sponsor is great. It's hard to find a sponsor. How about an accountability partner, somebody that you can share with in a trusting relationship? Don't quit. Keep coming back. This workshop is about gratitude. So at the end of the day, find points of gratitude. And I want to take some more questions if we have it, but we're out of time. So let's check in with our feelings. Let's close. Is that okay, Carol?
Thanks.
Because it's 2:55.
Yeah, that's right. People are asking for your email address, and I'm not sure if you gave that out or not.
I did. I'll go back to that at the beginning. So let's check in. So what I want to do, okay, here's my email address. Let's stop, check in with your feelings. Compare your feelings that you have now with at the beginning of the workshop. And then the serenity prayer. All together, please. Open your mics. Ready? God, grant me the serenity, accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can,
the wisdom to know the difference. I will be done.
Blessings, and keep coming back. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to send an email in response to your email. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for your service.
Question about the
Thank you,
where
Jay.
do we find this?
Thank you so much.
Where do we find this PowerPoint?
I think they're going to send this out, and there will also be a recording without video. So we'll send this out to participants. All right. Thank you. Have a good day. Good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you to our international fellowship.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jay.
I'm stopping the recording.